Now, if you wanted to test your ignition coil to check the integrity of the coil, a few different ways to check this. First thing I would probably do is I want to check it by ohms. A lot of people have this belief that you have to remove the whole entire engine just to test your coil. This is not true. Just disconnect your connector from the CDI unit. Remember, you're going to have a black yellow wire going into the connector. This goes directly to your primary coil for your ignition coil. Now, what I did, just to make my testing a little bit easier, I'm always making these stupid little test leads. So I just made like a small little test lead like this. You don't need to use this, but if you have small enough probes to go into the connector with your multimeter, this is not required. I just made this myself to make my job a little easier. So all I'm going to basically do is I'm going to put this into the connector where the black yellow wire resides. Then what I want to do is I'm going to take my multimeter and I'm going to set my multimeter, see if we can get a good light on that, and I want to set that to ohms. Now the parameters is probably somewhere from a half ohm to a full ohm. I don't really know. You'd probably just have to check in the manuals on the forums. But what I'm going to basically do is I'm just going to take my little lead that I have connected to my black yellow wire that goes to the ignition coil, and I'm going to attach one of my leads from my multimeter to that component. I'm going to take the other lead to my multimeter and I'm going to attach it to a constant ground. And let's see if we can get the multimeter, see if we can get some light on that. And I don't know if you can see that very well, but we're at about a little bit over a half ohm. So that's telling me that we're going to be okay on that portion of it. Now if I want to check the secondary coil of the ignition coil, what I want to do here is I want to go directly to the big main cable that comes off the ignition cable with the cap on it that actually plugs into your spark plug. I just have to find it. Okay, here we have one of my leads connected to the spark plug cap. I'm going to take my other lead to my multimeter, and again my multimeter is set to ohms, and I'm going to connect it to a viable ground. This is going to register a little bit different. This should be at about 10 kilo ohms. Let's see if I can get that in there. And so right now you can see where I'm at. I'm at 10.79 kilo ohms. So this is going to be right within its manufacturer's parameters. So our primary coil was running about 0.6 ohms, which are going to be okay there. Secondary, 10.79 kilo ohms. My coil should be operational, but if you still feel that your coil is not working correctly, there is still one last test we can do. Now, kind of a getaway to check your ignition coil just to make sure it is sending out a charge to the spark plug. And you can really do this just with a spark plug. On this test right here, I am going to use a lidded spark plug tester just so, well, just because it's kind of easier to see the light. But if you look at their spark plug cap here, you can actually see I have a red test lead that's just connected directly into that. And from there, it will go directly, and let's see if I can pan over here, and I have it connected. Let me pan out just a bit so we can get a better look at it. I have it to a spark plug tester. Now that's a lidded spark plug tester. So one end of it's connected to the coil, the other end of it's connected to the spark plug tester. The spark plug tester would just be a spark plug, so you can use a spark plug if it's properly grounded and look for spark this way as well. Now we're going to go up just a bit, and we're just going to zoom in here, and we can see that disconnected connector that goes to the CDI unit, and you can see one of my test leads that is plugged directly in where the black yellow wire resides. Remember that black yellow wire goes directly to the ignition coil. That's the wire that the CDI unit sends a power pulse through. So So all we're going to do is we're going to imitate that power pulse and just do it manually. On my green wire that I have down here that I should have plugged, yeah, there we go. That green wire right here, that goes directly to the battery. So that is a power, that is our power source. This is the other connector that it goes to the CDI connector that connects to the black yellow wire. So if we look at this, that's my connector right there. I'm kind of doing this slow and thorough because I don't want anybody to mess up their ignition coil by doing this, because it's real easy to fry your coil, and at that point, yeah, you would be removing the whole entire engine to replace the coil. So all we're going to basically do is we're just going to do we're going to send power pulses through this wire, which is connected to the black yellow wire, and see what the output is on our spark plug or our spark plug tester. Now I'm going to probably end up turning off the lights on this just so we can see the light come up on this, because the light's going to be somewhat faint, but you still should be able to see it. So basically all I'm going to be doing in the background is I'm going to be taking these two wires right here. This is my power wire. This is the wire that goes to the black yellow wire. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to tap it. I'm not going to hold it on there. I'm just going to tap it. Back and forth. You're going to see a little bit of sparking coming from it. But don't hold it on. So let me see if I can focus in here real quick and see if we can get a real true look at that. Because like I say, it's going to be real faint, so you got to look kind of hard. I'm going to turn off some of these lights. And again, I'm going to take that power wire and see if we can see any activity out of this. Okay, yeah, I can see it through the monitor. I'm going to turn off this other light as well. Make it nice and dark. So if you can see that light coming through there, that's just me connecting those two wires together. It shows that my actual coil is receiving my pulse from it, and it is dispersing it out to the spark plug. Your coil's okay. Okay, so just a quick review. In your CDI unit, you're going to have 4 wires in the connector. You have a black wire, which is going to be a power wire. This is controlled by the ignition switch. This wire should only have power when the key ignition switch is in its on position. You will also have a green wire going into the CDI unit connector. This is a ground wire. This ground is manipulated by the kickstand switch. So this way, when you're testing this, you should have constant ground when the kickstand is in its up position, as if you were riding the bike. If you do not have ground on this green wire, then you have an interruption of the circuit. At that point, if you want to bypass the safety switch that's connected to the kickstand, you can do so by cutting the green wire and attaching it to a constant viable ground. That way the CDI unit always has ground, no matter if the kickstand is in its up position or in its down position. You will also have a black yellow wire coming out of the connector as well. This goes directly to the ignition coil. You will also have a blue white wire going into the connector. This goes to the pulse generator. The pulse generator informs the CDI unit of fire point. The CDI unit will interpret this fire point and then send a power pulse through that black yellow wire to the ignition coil, delivering the charge or the spark to the spark plug. The pickup coil. When we're testing the pickup coil, remember there's 2 wires. There's a green wire and there's a blue white wire. The green wire, it should always have constant ground because it's attached to the back of the stator. If the stator becomes loose, it could cause an interruption of ground and cause a stuttering or a no start situation. The blue wire should only have ground when your run switch is set to off. So again, like I say, if you're testing that blue wire for ground, again, you should only have ground when your run switch is set to off.